Joining us now on Encounter is Phil Andrew, Director of Violence Prevention Initiatives for the Archdiocese of Chicago. Thank you so much for being with us, Phil.
My pleasure.
Now, this is a new position in the Archdiocese. Maybe if you could tell us about some of your duties in the position and why Cardinal Cupich thought the time was right for this role.
Yes. Well, I think this is a direct call, response to the Pope's call for us to be the field hospital and to get close to some of the folks that are most traumatized and needy in our community. And the Cardinal's been very outspoken about wanting to address Chicago's gun violence since he arrived in Chicago, and has been clear that he wants to do this in a collaborative, sustainable, effective way. I come to this role with 21 years experience in the FBI, primarily running crisis negotiation teams and crisis management for the FBI. And I think the way we're defining this is, first, we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that our children are safe from gun violence. And on the first part of that is really addressing basic needs in terms of planning and crisis management in our schools and parishes. The second part of that, of course, is prevention and doing everything that we can, primarily motivated by our faith, that nonviolence, conflict resolution, and restorative justice should be part of our DNA. It should be stuff that we are teaching and using in our schools and our parishes, and we should be projecting those programs into communities that are most affected by violence.
And people have their ideas about some of the main reasons for violence. They might think it's poverty, lack of opportunity, getting mixed into the wrong crowd. What has your experience shown? What are some of the top root causes of violence, do you think?
Yeah, I think that violence is a symptom of when people are frightened, isolated, and disconnected from their community. All things that, as a faith community, you would expect us to be addressing. We're called to reach out to folks that are suffering. We have very specific programs that here in the Chicago Archdiocese that address root causes of violence, like poverty, like trauma, domestic violence, joblessness, and hopelessness. What we're hoping to do is scale up some of those programs, but also create a consciousness in the communities and with the Catholic faithful that recognize that they're coming from communities that maybe are more resourced, and allowing them to see that the plight of our neighbors in less resourced neighborhoods is part of our responsibility, and that there's very practical and simple things that we could do to address some of those needs.
Yeah, maybe if you could expand on that too. I was just going to ask you about the people in the pew, maybe specific ways that they can help in the cause of nonviolence, to lend a hand, to sort of get more involved, or I guess more aware.
Yes, well, I think the first thing is Cardinal Cupich here in Chicago has been very clear that this can be a daunting problem. It's frightening, right? The things, the images that we see, the discourse that we hear about urban violence, about school violence, it seems like it's such a big problem that we sort of become incapacitated. Now, the first thing is to really break that down and recognize that, yes, this is a difficult problem and it's frightening, but that there are things that we could do. So I think getting past that idea that there's nothing that can be done, that there actually are things that can be done, that bringing in programs that focus on restorative justice, train our students in nonviolence and our parishes, like really practical skills in conflict resolution. That those are the same skills that have been born out of some of the most effective urban anti-violence programs. Those skills translate into other aspects of both parish life, civic life, and community life. That recognizing that that we could pull some of those those really rich parts of those programs and use them and make them part of our habit is one piece of it. So breaking that cycle of that there's nothing that can be done. And then two, showing folks how easy it can be to get involved and allowing them to be successful in that engagement when they volunteer or tutor or mentor a student. Maybe it's as simple as raising your own personal consciousness with a prayer that centers you around the idea that the plight of others in violence is something that you could bring God and yourself to address.
Some great things too. We're quickly running out of time. Just one more question too. You mentioned too the many different programs that are already in place, and Catholic Charities I know does a great job with them too. Talk about the partnership with other groups and organizations and how important that is too. Some people that are already on the ground working with organizations and sort of partnering with them.
Yes, you're right. That's one of our great opportunities, is because there is good work already being done. When we look at engaging maybe a resourced parish behind the idea of building the capacity of one of those programs that's already on the ground. And that could be collaborating in an interfaith, ecumenical way with other organizations in a resourced area, and plug that in to in a collaborative way into organizations that are doing the hard on the ground work in areas that are more affected. And what's beautiful about that is it really changes both sides. It helps folks that are dealing with very violent, affected neighborhoods recognize that they're not alone, that people outside the community and within their own community care deeply about this and want to work towards solutions. And when folks from resourced communities start connecting with that, they start seeing that this is a solvable problem, that there are real people with real lives and children, and that have many of the same hopes and dreams for their children as we do in resourced areas. And it's that connection that I think that's what the Pope's talking about, and us being a field hospital. He's talking about us connecting with the people that are suffering and allow our hearts to be changed and then build communion with them. And both lives are changed.
Yeah, it's great work. We wish you wish you well, and God bless you in your work. It's great work that's being done there in Chicago. Thank you so much for being with us today, Phil.
Thanks for your time.